We're glad you're with us today for our Bible study. I'm Fred Davis, pastor of Mending Fences Cowboy Church in Lebanon, Tennessee. And we meet at the Starstruck Farm on Highway 109, just south of Gallatin. It's an easy place to find. We're very grateful for the opportunity to be there. And we're grateful for all the guests that we have week by week. And it's just a great time. If you're not actively involved in the church, we would invite you to come at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning as we worship the Lord and fellowship with the people. We are in the Old Testament book of Ecclesiastes. This book is written by a man, his name was Solomon. He was considered to be the wisest man that had ever lived. He was also one of the wealthiest men that ever lived. So in this book, he sets out to find out the purpose of life. So he looks at a lot of different things and situations in people's lives. And so we are in the 5th chapter of the book of Ecclesiastes. Matter of fact, we're going to begin with verse 8. Ecclesiastes chapter 5 and verse 8. This subject deals with each of us as the American people. Listen to what it says. Don't be surprised if you see a poor person being oppressed by the powerful, and if justice is being miscarried throughout the land. It's true. Poor people have very little influence in our government, in our court systems today. The poor people just do not have much influence. But if you are wealthy, or if you hold a position in the community, you can have influence in our courts, in our governments, in our school boards, all of these things that are going on. And Solomon points this out to us. For every official is under orders from higher up, and matters of justice get lost in red tape and bureaucracy. Even the king milks the land for his own profit. So just think about it for a minute. We find ourselves in a position where men are trying to be above and beyond other people. We want to have more than others have. And when that is the case, the wealthy people have great influence in the systems of our government. This goes on in America. You've seen the Illuminati and different things that go on in the world today. And it's all about influence and power. But I do want to say to you this morning, that is also true in most of our churches. In the state of Tennessee and other states all through the South, so many of our churches are run by a small group of influential people. They determine what goes on, what's going to take place, because of their influence in the community. This can be reduced even to the community in which we live. I remember years ago, my dad pastored one of his first churches in the hills of Kentucky. And there was a man that came to our church. He walked to church, walked with a cane. He was the local bootlegger. He would sell illegal whiskey, and he sold that on Saturday nights to people that wanted it. But on Sunday, he went to church. He was in charge. And I remember in this church, they were going to have a revival that was going to go through the weekend. Well, it started on a Monday night. And my dad, after the service, went out to get in his car, and all 4 tires were flat. He couldn't understand that. It took him a long time to get air in the tires and to get home. It was real late at night when he got home. Well, he contacted the former pastor and asked him what was going on. And when he found out that there was a revival going to take place under the leadership of the former pastor, well, it was interesting what happened. The former pastor, his tires were flat on the first night as well. So the same thing was going on. The former pastor told my dad, as the new pastor, if you go on throughout the weekend, you're going to have great difficulty. And so it was interesting. He told him the next night they will break out the windows in your car. And so my dad was determined the revival was going to go on. So on the second night, my dad insisted that I go with him to the revival. When we arrived at the church, my dad got out of the car, but he told me, he says, no, don't you get out. You're staying here. So he got in the trunk and got a lug wrench. He handed it to me and said, you might need it. I didn't know what in the world he was talking about. As soon as this man made his way into the church, down the road came 2 big old robust boys. They came up to my car, and I told them, I said, what y'all up to? And we started a conversation and began talking. And what I discovered was this: that bootlegger had given each of them a pint of whiskey if they would come down and break out the windows of the preacher's car. Well, I was there. They didn't break out the windows, and they left. Well, what I found out was the bootlegger was not going to allow his business on the weekend to be affected. So this went on. It got very serious by the weekend, but they've had the revival. It went through the weekend, but the bootlegger was very upset. Well, my dad was able to prove what the bootlegger was doing. He ended up in jail because of it. That same man, while he was in jail, somebody poisoned him and he died in jail. But he was determined he was going to stop that revival. Well, this was a small community, insignificant by other communities, but this one man had a lot of influence. And he was running the community and the church. So this was a small situation, but you can multiply that in major cities all over the United States. It's unreal how people weigh power and they control situations. This is what Solomon is talking about. Even the king milks the land for his own profit. That is what is going on. People would rather have power than to have money. They like the money, but power to them is most important. So, we're going to be looking at this as we go through the study. And so I hope that you'll read the remainder of this chapter as we're preparing for the Bible studies that will take place all during this week. Thank you for being with us today.